Welcome aboard. I'm Captain Wayne Canning, Master Boat Builder and Marine Surveyor. Today I'd like to talk to you about purchasing storm-damaged boats. Every year, it seems, there's some storm somewhere along the coast that comes up and damages a handful or even thousands of boats. Often these boats can represent a pretty good deal for those who have the ability and resources to repair them. But not all storm-damaged boats are a good deal. Some are better than others. So I thought I'd tell you what to look for in a storm-damaged boat when you're looking to purchase one. The first thing you want to consider when looking at storm-damaged boats is what was the condition of the boat before the loss. You want to make sure that you're looking at a boat that has been relatively well maintained and that was in reasonably good condition before the storm came along and caused the loss. You don't want to get involved in a boat that looks like a good deal but then turns out to be a lot more work than you expected. Think of it this way. You're basically buying a used boat. Before you even consider purchasing it, you want to look it over and see what condition it is. To start off with, ignore the storm damage, look at the rest of the boat and pretend it wasn't damaged. Would you buy this boat? Would it be one you would consider? Or is it one that looks like it needs a whole lot of work? The maintenance has been slack on it. You might have to replace the rigging, you might have to replace the engine, on and on. You want to find a boat that was in decent condition before the loss, just as if you were buying a used boat in general. Then you can look at the type of loss and see whether it's not something you can handle. There are several types of loss associated with storm-damaged boats. To start off with, a lot of times the insurance companies will pay to have a storm-damaged boat repaired. But if the insurance company feels like the damage is going to exceed 80% of the insured value of the boat, then they're going to total it out. Often the insured value of the boat is not the same as the resale value of the boat. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. So it all depends on how the insurance company feels they can deal with it. A lot of times on a major storm like Sandy up here, Boat US estimates that more than 65,000 boats were damaged. It may just be impossible for the repair companies up in that area to handle all of these boats. So it might be simpler just for the insurance company to go ahead and total the boat out so the owner can buy a new boat and get on with boating. Because it could be a year or two before the repair facility can get around to repairing the boat. So insurance companies have a few reasons to total out the boats, some better than others. Once a boat's been totaled out, the insurance company takes ownership of it. Well, of course, the insurance company doesn't want to be an owner of a damaged boat. So they, in turn, will hire or pass it on to a salvage company, a company that specializes in selling off salvaged goods. Sometimes these companies can specialize in marine products. Other times they may just be general companies that handle salvaged autos, salvaged construction equipment, whatever. If it's salvaged, they'll sell it. Some companies are better than others. Sometimes the insurance companies will auction the boats off themselves. A big company like Boat US might gather all the boats together in one large lot and then pick a day and auction all the boats off on that one day. It all depends. Different companies handle it different ways. Let's take a look at the types of losses associated with storm-damaged boats. The first and worst type of loss is a total submersion. This is when the boat has basically been sunk. In my opinion, you should avoid these boats. The damage can be extensive, and without knowing exactly how long the boat was underwater, you have no idea how invasive that water has been into the structure of the boat. A lot of times the listings will say the engine's been pickled, but you don't really know how well, and even if the engine still can be turned over and it might look like it has clean oil in it, all of the electronics are going to be damaged. All of the systems in the boat are going to be damaged. All of the pumps are going to need replacement. Good chance most of the electrical is going to need replacement. This is a major project. If the boat's been underwater for any period of time and not properly dried out, most of the woodwork inside of the boat will probably need replacement. When you're looking at a submerged boat, you're pretty much just looking at a hull. So if you go that route, you have to have the ability to rebuild the entire boat, and you have to understand you are just buying a hull and deck. You also will have to look at the rest of the damage other than just plain water damage that's been done to the boat. Occasionally, if you can find a storm damaged boat that's only been underwater for a short period of time or partially flooded, there may be some hope. But in general, I try to stay away from this type of damage. The next most prevalent damage is what I call dock rash. This is where the boat's banged up against a dock or another boat or a piling. You'll see a lot of damage to the hull side, particularly around the shear and rub rail. Often this will chew its way into the deck and affect the deck. These boats can represent a pretty good deal, particularly if you're good at doing woodwork and glass work, because this will require some extensive fiberglass abilities. But these boats do have potential. The thing you want to be careful of is you make sure that there's not more extensive damage than what's visible. You've got to check over for broken bonds on bulkheads, even on the other side of the boat. These impacts that these boats sustain can echo throughout the structure of the boat, and you'll find damage in areas well away from where it appears that the damage has been done. Also, you need to be careful of water damage around these areas. If flooding can occur because the boat's been opened up like this, this can affect electronics in the area, wiring in the area, etc. But these boats aren't such a bad deal and worth looking into. Another common type of damage is grounding. This is when the boat's been blown off of its mooring, or sometimes the dock. Often you'll see boats beached still tied to the dock when the whole floating dock has come loose. Groundings are fairly common. Boats will lay over on their side. Sometimes they'll pound on rocks, sometimes soft mud, sometimes weed. A lot of damage associated with groundings is to rudders, keels, running gear, that type of thing. Sometimes there'll be small holes punched in the bottom of the boat right at the turn of the bilge. Obviously this will result in some flooding, but if the boat's up on the beach, the flooding may not be very bad, may be limited to just the area surrounding the hull. The next most common type of damage is wind damage. Wind damage usually results in things like shredded canvas, shredded sails, damaged from blown bits and pieces of buildings and stuff hitting the boat, broken windows. A lot of times when canvas comes loose, particularly bitumen tops, the frame can beat into the boat and cause a lot of fiberglass damage. So wind damage tends to be not quite as severe, but can be fairly prevalent. And finally, one type of damage you need to keep an eye out for is what I call salvage damage. This is damage that's occurred to the boat in the process of saving the boat, in the process of removing it from the beach, picking it up from wherever it is. Salvers are often very busy after a storm. They don't have time to be gentle with the boats. You'll find things like cleats ripped out of the deck, and this can cause a fairly substantial amount of damage to a fiberglass deck when a cleat is completely ripped through the deck. They'll often cause damage to running gear as they twist the boat off of the beach. Keels can be damaged like this. Lifting straps improperly placed can cause damage to the shear and rub rail. Sometimes when a boat's rolled off of the beach, it may contain some water in it. That water can slosh inside of the boat and momentarily get an engine or electrical system wet that may not appear like it has gotten wet. You need to be careful about this, and you need to look carefully for salvage damage. And of course, most boats that you're going to be looking at is going to have a combination of these types of damages. Some flooding, some dock rash, some wind damage, some salvage damage. You might find them all in one. Okay, now that you have an idea what to look for in a damaged boat and what to avoid and how to look over a damaged boat, I strongly recommend any boat that you're thinking of bidding on, you go see in person. There is no substitute for laying your own eyeballs on the boat and looking it over and lifting things up and poking around in lockers and just basically thoroughly looking it over before you even consider bidding on it. This will also give you a good idea of what the pre-loss condition was. You know, once again, was the boat maintained? Poking around inside of it, you can get a pretty good idea how well a boat was maintained. This is not always easy. You need to get permission to board a boat. You can't just go to a boat and climb on board. You might be shot as a looter. You never know. but you do have to be careful. A lot of insurance companies have severe restrictions on boarding the boat. Make sure you talk to the boat's agent, the insurance agent, whatever. Make sure you get permission to board that boat before you board it. Next question becomes, where do you find hurricane damaged boats? I mean, who do you talk to about these things? Where do you get the information about them? I do not recommend calling the insurance company. The problem is with calling insurance companies is that everybody and his brother is calling the insurance company saying, I want to get a good deal on a boat. The insurance companies don't have time for it. They are simply too busy trying to deal with their customers, pay claims, evaluate the condition of boats. They don't have time for every tire kicker who comes along interested in a good deal. So they're probably not going to return your call, and they're probably not going to talk to you. So where do you go from there? Well, I strongly recommend you contact local marine surveyors. These are the guys who are going to be out in the field looking at the boats, making the evaluations of damage. They're going to know what boats are damaged and how badly. They're also going to know what insurance companies are handling what boats. They might be able to give you the right names at the insurance companies of people to talk to, or they might be able to tell you when the auction is planned. At any rate, the surveyors probably have more information than anybody else. So I recommend contacting all of the surveyors, not just one or two, because each surveyor is going to have his hands full and each one's going to know something a little bit different. Tell the surveyor exactly what kind of boat you're looking for. I'm looking for a 30-foot sailboat, full keel, whatever. Tell them what you're looking for. They'll be able to help you narrow down your search so you don't waste a lot of time. Another good source is contacting salvage companies and marine transport companies. These are the guys who are going to be picking the boats up off, scraping the pieces up, so to speak, picking the boats up off of the beach and moving them to a location where they are to be held until they can be auctioned off. These guys will have some information for you as well. Might be hard to get up with these guys because they're all going to be busy, they're all going to be out in the field. I recommend making calls first thing in the morning or at the end of the day. You're going to have better luck actually talking to somebody. There are some companies that specialize in handling, as I mentioned earlier, handling these boats for the insurance companies to auction them off. You can look online for these companies. There's some that specialize in just marine products. There's others that specialize in just general auction items. Look online, make a few phone calls, talk to these people. These are going to be the guys who are going to be more willing to talk to you because in the end they're the ones who are making a profit off of selling the boats. So they're going to want people interested in them. They're going to be able to give you the information. They can give you the links to online listings for boats where you can see photographs and hopefully narrow your search down. Okay, now that you've found a boat, picked out what you want, found one that fits your criteria, found one that you feel like you can tackle, what's the next step? Well, before even thinking about bidding, the very next step you want to do is think about how you are going to deal with the boat should you win it. Should you be able to buy it, what are you going to do next? You're going to have to get the boat to wherever you are to work on it. Odds are the boat's not going to be floating. Some will, some won't. Even if it's floating, good chance is you're not going to be able to just motor it to wherever you want to work on it. So you need to consider this. You need to think about transport. Often when auctions are held, it's required that the boat be moved within a reasonable period of time. Sometimes this period of time can be as short as 24 hours, sometimes 48, sometimes 36. You need to be aware of what the requirements are on that particular boat as far as getting it moved. The fees for not moving it within that period of time can be relatively steep. You need to be aware of this. You need to consider where you're going to work on the boat once you get it. And once you get it to where you are. Are you going to be able to put it in a boatyard? Will that boatyard allow you to work on it there? What requirements is the boatyard going to have for you to work on it? Can you put it at your house? Can you put it in your backyard? You got to think about where you're going to put it, where you're going to work on it, because you have to consider that the boat's going to be there for a little bit of time. You're not going to make those repairs over a weekend. Most storm damaged boats take months to repair. You need to consider this. You also need to think about things like insurance. Most boat yards won't allow you to bring a boat into the yard without at least liability insurance. Most marine transporters won't put the boat on the trailer to move it unless they have liability insurance. So this is something you have to check into and you have to be aware of before you ever start bidding. Alright, so you figured it all out. You know what boat you want, you know how you're going to get it to where you're going to work on it, you know where you're going to work on it, you've checked into insurance, life is good. The next step is getting ready to bid. This gets a little tricky. You want to make sure that you do not bid too much for the boat. Basically, my rule of thumb is no deal is too good that you can't walk away from it. You need to keep that in mind. The very first step to do is once again go back to your evaluation of the boat pre-loss. Take a look at the boat, go online, do some comps, find out what the boat was worth pre-loss. You need to know this number so that you can work backwards from it. Once you have a pretty good idea of what the boat was pre-loss, then you need to estimate the cost of repairs. Don't kid yourself on this one. Assume that the repairs are going to cost more than you expect. Take into account cost of transportation, cost of insurance, cost of materials. Obviously, your labor is going to be pretty much a write-off, but never underestimate the cost of materials. Always assume more than you think it's going to be. Come up with a number, double it. Then you can take that number off of the average resale value of the boat, and that should give you a pretty good idea of what is the top number you're going to pay for this boat. And hopefully you want to come out a good bit lower than that. So set yourself a high price on this is it. This is the top of the line. I'm not going to bid any more than this number, and stick to it. Do not get caught up in the bidding process. Way too many people I see pay way more than they should for a storm damaged boat, and they inevitably get in over their head and wish they had not done it. The reason you're looking at a storm damaged boat is you want a good deal. Keep that in mind. Don't forget that. It's easier to bid online in an open auction when you can see what other people are bidding. But often, particularly in larger storms, you might find yourself in a lot with 100 boats and 200 other people moving from boat to boat in a quick auction format. You have to be on your toes. You have to know what's going on, and you have to stop at your top price. Don't get caught up in the bidding excitement and go over. Basically, you'll regret it in the long run. Pay attention to that one rule. No deal is so good you can't walk away from it. There will be other storms. There will be other boats. You want a good deal, you're going to have to stick to your guns on this one. And like I mentioned, there's different ways of bidding. I have seen closed auctions where you just write a number on a piece of paper and send it into the insurance company and hope for the best. Other auctions are online where you can see what the other guy's bidding. Other auctions are closed online where you can't see what the other guy's bidding. And like I say, other auctions are live auctions where you're right there and in the excitement of it all. So there's different ways of doing it, but setting your top price is the way to go. The next little trick to remember is bid a little bit higher than what you set as your top price. Now when I say a little bit, I mean a few dollars. Say you're looking at a boat, you want to bid $2,000 for it. You set that as your top price. I'm not going any higher than $2,000. Well, guess what? Go to $2,333. Few bucks more, you might win the boat. Or you can go to $2,033 if you don't want to go that high. And then round it up a little bit more. Go to $2,033.78. You might just win it by 78 cents. Bidding an odd number may just get you over the top without spending a lot to get over the top. So keep that in mind. That's a common trick. A lot of people do it. It may or may not work for you, but it's worth a try. I have won boats by a matter of just a few bucks by just going to an odd number a little bit higher than was my top price. You don't want to lose a boat over $10 or $15. So a few bucks isn't going to hurt. But set that as your top number. Once again, this is going to be my top number. If I thought I could do it for $2,000, I'm going to set it as $2,333.78, and I will not go a penny higher than it. Stick to it. You will get a good deal eventually. You may not get the first boat you bid on, but you will get a good deal eventually. The boat I'm sitting on here today, that's exactly how I got this boat. I bid just an odd number over and won this boat by just a few dollars. I bought this boat 6 years ago. It's an Irwin 40, and I've been fixing it up ever since. I now live on board. I sailed it to Bermuda last summer. So it proves it can be done. You can get a good deal. You just need to make sure that you don't get in upside down on the boat and that the repairs don't cost more than what will add up to the average resale value of the boat. You don't want to get in over your head. Also, make sure that you have the ability to do the work. Don't kid yourself here. If you don't think you have the ability to do it, then be honest with yourself. Don't say, oh yeah, I can do that, it'll take me a weekend. Trust me. Go online, say 6-8 months after a storm has passed through, you'll see dozens of boats on eBay. They're being sold by the guy who bought it from the insurance company because he suddenly realized he's in over his head. This may also be a good way for you to buy a storm-damaged boat. Look well after the storm. If you didn't get a chance to get the boat that you wanted in the immediate aftermath of the storm when all the boats are auctioned off, troll around online for a bit, 6-8 months after the storm. You will see dozens of boats that guys have bought, thought they got a really good deal on, and suddenly realize they're stuck. It's well beyond their skills. They're pouring more money into it than they expected. They want to get out. But when looking at these boats, you need to be careful that this guy hasn't stripped out all the good stuff on the boat, sold it off to cover his losses, and now you're just buying partial boat. So once again, bit of caution. Take your time, do your research. But there are good deals to be had, and you can come out with a decent boat after storm damage and save some money. If you have the skills and abilities, you can do it, but you need to be careful. Good luck, and hope to see you out there.